Yeah, because I think, you know, we were talking about, I was talking to somebody the other day and she's interested in yoga therapy. And so we were talking about that. And she said that she teaches Christian yoga. And I was like, that's awesome. And I've had conversation with, you know, teachers who have wanted to teach for me in the past or whatever. And they're like, can I teach Christian yoga? And I'm like, you can teach whatever you want as long as you explicitly tell people what they're getting into, right? And so, I mean, if we are going to go in and do adjustments and assist, and we're going to focus on alignment and stuff like that, if we call it, you know, adjust and align, right? Then yeah, everybody knows what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then they're coming in for that. And then you have another conversation, you know, and you talk to people. I mean, I know it sounds sort of silly, but you should open the class with, hi, welcome to adjust and assisting, or not adjustments and alignments and adjustments, or whatever it's called. In this class, we're going to focus on alignment as load optimization. I'll be offering you adjustments and assist. If at any time you don't want an adjustment or an assist, please just raise your hand and give them a safe way to get out of it. You know, that's another thing, because somebody might say, we were talking about this on office hours. Somebody might say, yes, adjust me. And then something happens and they start getting anxious and the teacher starts approaching them and then they don't want to be adjusted anymore, but then they don't say anything. You know, give them an out. Yeah. Awesome. Other comments, questions?
Yeah, I have a few comments. I did have a teacher adjust me back when I was first doing yoga as a student person, and her touch was gentle. I was in pigeon pose, and I was laying face down, you know, all the way to the mat, comfortable, and she came and pressed my back. I really didn't have any problem with her touching me, but I didn't know why she was pressing my back. I didn't know, you know, what was going on. Was my back in a weird place? Once she pressed it, was it in the right place? Should I be, you know, seeking more, education about what that pose is or whatever? I had no clue what was going on. So when she did that, and my face is down, mind you, so I didn't know what was going on, I thought, what is the problem? What am I doing wrong? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But, you know, eventually becoming a teacher, I found out a lot of things about that pose. So, but that was confusing to me. And I do like that pose a great deal, actually. And the other thing, completely sort of different subject about this assist and so forth, and how yoga is evolving because of going online, maybe classes about teaching online, because cueing is a little different. How you're in front of the camera is different. Your mic is different because the teacher's down and you can't hear him or her because now they're muffled. Mm-hmm. So, et cetera, et cetera. Just a whole different ball game, you know, in terms of being in front of a camera. You have to get reacclimated. And if you're just doing it by yourself in front of the camera, that's also, you know, challenging, that you don't have somebody dollying in towards you and pulling back and getting different angles of you as a teacher, which would be awesome. But I don't have that. I don't have the equipment, you know, how to deal with all that stuff, how to, you know, enunciate better or whatever, all the different things that go on. It's a different world when you're in front of a camera.
Sure. I think to the pigeon comment, what comes up for me around that is that, again, there's a difference between adjustments and assist. So that sounds like it was a feel-good assist, right? She was trying to get you to feel better. And then what happened, because there wasn't a communication, there was no communication, your material came up around that. Like, it was like, what did I do wrong, right? And wasn't her intention, right? Yeah. But she didn't communicate clearly what her intention was. Right. So I think as yoga evolves, we have to clearly communicate. I mean, it's been a long time since I've been in a public class like I used to teach because of COVID and all this stuff. But I used to teach classes on Sunday that would have like 60 people in them. And so, I would often go, if I was going to do an adjustment if I was going to do an assist rather, and it was just a feel good assist, I might say, to people, I might be coming around the room offering assist just to help you get a little deeper into child's pose, or to help you get a little deeper into pigeon pose or whatever. And that way they don't think they're wrong, that I'm not trying to move them or fix them. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's one thing we can do to sort of circumvent some of that. It's inadvertent transference is what it is. And that's what happens. I mean, it just happens, even in relationships, regular relationships, that happens. So then about the teaching online, actually we want to do a couple things. I'm working with, we're hiring all these mentors. We're still hiring mentors. We'll keep hiring mentors, but we want to do some like breakout sessions with you guys where we're like letting you guys practice teach and get some, experience with that and teaching online and teaching together. And I think that it goes back to the way I teach you to assess postural alignment. You're looking for things like, where is the knee in relation to the ankle? Sure, teaching online is not perfect, but if your students' cameras are on, you can start looking at those things. Right. Is the knee stacked over the ankle? Now, here comes a whole different issue. Right. When the student doesn't want their camera on, because the student doesn't feel comfortable on camera. And so we have to be very, compassionate. And let's think about this for a second. I'm sure there are students that walk into my yoga class all the time and they do not want to be adjusted. They like what they're doing. They don't want to do it any differently. And that's okay. So I guess that, we just need to make it clear when we're teaching online. We need to say something like, hey guys, today I'm going to be teaching you guys a vinyasa flow. If you'd like me to give you cues to adjust your alignment, please leave your camera on. Right? So we need to explicitly tell them why we're asking them to leave the camera on. And then if they don't, they can turn it off and we know that it's okay.
Yeah, and following up a little on that too, when I've been was able to teach classes and have real people in front of me, some of the people who were in the back would complain they couldn't hear, but they were embarrassed to come up front. So that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that comes back to the teacher projecting her voice, right? And being aware, some people can project their voice much clearer than other people, and it's just something we have to work on. So somebody asked, what is the difference between Christian yoga and regular yoga? So I don't think that there's any real difference, to be honest with you. It's the languaging that you use, right? So if I am I don't even know how to say this. If I'm in a class at a yoga studio and I'm not emphasizing any religious denomination, right? It's just a yoga class. I am not going to bring up Buddha. I'm not going to bring up Christ. I'm not going to bring up Muhammad. I'm not going to bring up Krishna. Like literally, I'm not bringing up religious figures in a yoga class because that can be very activating for people. Okay. So I would be talking about coming back to your breath. I would be talking about centering yourself. I would be talking about being compassionate. Well, these are all themes that, Christ practiced, right? So there are a lot of yoga teachers who are both Christian and yoga teachers who are trying to create a bridge for Christians that want to practice yoga but feel like it goes against their religion. And there's a misperception in the world around this, right? That yoga is a religion, but it's not. It's a spirituality. It's a connection to the divinity, I was actually talking to her and I was like, yeah, there's really a misunderstanding. In yoga, we say we're divine beings having a human experience. Well, in Christianity, we say we're filled with the Holy Spirit. What's the difference? There's no difference, like literally it's like calling one thing a glass and the other thing a tumbler. Like really, what's the difference? Like they're both for water, you drink out of them. The underlying foundation and principles in yoga philosophy span all religions. And so I don't like to put yoga in the box of religion, but I do know that there are people who view it as something else outside of spirituality. They view it as if they practice, then they will be going against their belief system. And for those people, there are teachers who teach yoga in the vein of Christianity, and they bring in things like Bible verses and, you know, quotes that, you know, Jesus might have said and stuff like that. And I really think it's great, you know, because there's so many different ways. Patanjali says in the Yoga Sutras, you can come to your enlightened state of being by faith, by working with a teacher, by devotion to God. Like, there's no shortage of ways that you can come to your enlightened state of being. Everyone is enlightened. They just don't realize it. We awaken to it. And as we're awakening to it, those concepts and the qualities of enlightenment are the same qualities as like Christ consciousness, right? So it's a funny little line that I don't like to walk on, but there are teachers that is their calling, their mission is to speak to that community. And I think that's great. I think that's awesome. And there's also a whole group of teachers in India that their whole job is to teach to the Muslim population, specifically Muslim girls. So the orphanages in India often have to, I'll get it out in a second. The orphanages in India often have to have all of their girls convert to Muslim, to convert to Islam. I mean, I lived in the Middle East for 5 years. I should be able to talk about this stuff. So they have them, and it's a political thing. It's because the government won't fund it unless it's a minority group. Does that make sense? And so they will, like, a lot of the orphanages are Islamic girls' orphanages, and they are still teaching them yoga. But when I lived in the Middle East, guys, a regular Kuwaiti would not have done yoga because it would have been a conflict of their religion. So there are a lot of people who are making it their mission to sort of bridge these gaps and to create a more accessible yoga practice for people with very structured religious beliefs. Yeah, I don't know. You know, so somebody said, well, what, you know, Jewish yoga. So the Jewish tradition, and I don't know if anybody is Jewish on the call today, but I lived in Israel for 3 years. I'm not Jewish, but I have many, many Jewish friends. And the Jewish tradition is so similar to yoga in terms of the way that they look at the earth as being an integral part of our experience and as being fertile, and it's all just an experience that we're moving through. Like there's a lot of nuances about yoga and the Jewish faith that are very similar, and it really lends itself very well to yoga already. Yeah, so, and then somebody else said, you know, a lot of times Christian yoga practice, they stay away from chanting, they stay away from Om, they stay away from Namaste and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, and so I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because people are saying that they're finding this helpful, because people, you know, in the community that have a very, very specific belief system might be like, why are you a yoga teacher? Why are you studying this, stuff like that? And so it's an opportunity for education, you know, and I was raised very Christian, like very, very right-wing Christian, actually. Like I was raised Church of Christ. For anybody who's a Church of Christ goer, there was no alcohol, there was no dancing, there was no nothing. You just sat there. There's no music in church. Like they didn't believe in music in church. It was like really a thing. And then I ended up growing up, and I went totally to the opposite direction and converted to Catholicism. And I was like, I need the music, I need the ritual, I need all the things, right? But it was really sort of, it's interesting how if you have that background and I don't feel like I was religiously wounded, so I didn't have any trauma around religion. So I have no problem talking about yoga and religion and Christ and religion and Muhammad and religion and Abraham and religion, or Abraham and yoga and all this stuff. Like I can talk about it pretty fluidly. And I think that that is a lot of times what people need in order to feel more safe about it. That's funny. Awesome. All right, any other adjustment assist questions?
I had something about the COVID thing. As people are talking about like, oh, what if people don't want to be touched because of the virus and everything? Like, to me, we haven't really heard anything about you shouldn't touch each other, because they're actually saying you should stay 6 feet apart from each other. So if I'm going to a class someday really close after things reopen, which here gyms are still closed, things like that, they're saying you can go and do these things, but you have to have a mask and you have to use social distancing. Well, people aren't actually doing that, right? But if I'm going to a class that once the gyms are opened and they're announcing this is a social distanced class, I'm going to expect that that's being enforced, that somebody's not going to put their yoga mat right next to mine because the room is full and we can't tell people that the room is full, or that the yoga teacher is going to come 3 feet away from me and be like, bring your hand to meet mine. Like, you're within 6 feet of me. You might as well be touching me. I would rather be touched than have you breathe on me. You know what I mean? So like, I think it would be helpful to really announce like, this is a social distance class, if that's what you're going to choose to do once you get out to the point where you could make that choice or not. Right now, obviously we can't make that choice. And I think if you're in a state where they're telling you you're not allowed to make that choice to do things without social distancing, like, we should be enforcing it better than the supermarket and the bank and everywhere else. Yeah. That's just my opinion that I would advocate for. So
yeah, I agree with you. So here's what I noticed, and I think I mentioned this earlier. I am noticing that people want to social distance, but they feel like they can't tell people to back up, or they feel like they can't tell people to wear a mask, or they feel like that, like, it's going to be offensive in some way. And I'm going to actually put a sign on my door, on my front door, that says, no hugs, fish lips and bear hugs. Like, you just keep it to yourself, everybody. You know, just, you can touch yourself all day long, but don't touch me. Don't touch other people. Because I'm not seeing that people are talking about it. Chris and I went last weekend. I'm trying to really find work-life balance, guys. I'm really trying to take care of myself. So last weekend we went to the lake and we were paddleboarding, and everybody was touching everybody. Literally everybody was touching everybody. And I'm like, what is happening? And I'm seeing people barbecue and they're sharing food. And I'm like, what is happening? And of course, Chris and I are like, and we actually were biking a couple of weeks ago, and it was the same thing. We're biking on Town Lake, which is safe. We're social distanced, right? I'm not breathing on anybody, whatever. And people are like holding hands. They're like walking arm in arm. There's not a mask in sight. I'm like, what is happening? So it sort of drives me a little crazy. I think you're right. We have to set the expectations. I'm basically, the only reason we haven't opened in Austin is because I'm really waiting on my C of O. The fire marshal, I don't know if anybody has any fire marshal dances they want to do for me, like good juju, because the fire marshal has to give me my final approval, and then we can, then we can open. But what does open even mean? Well, for me, it means that my teachers get to go in and film in the small studio one at a time for YouTube. And it means that we might have 2 classes a day outside and 2 classes a day inside. Now, my big room, I can fit 10 people with 6 feet all the way around them. Okay, and that's it. Outside, I can fit probably 15 people with 6 feet all the way around them. We have covered, like our area outside is like partially covered. So if I had like a morning class and an afternoon class outside, and then I had a mid-morning class and a mid-afternoon class inside, that gives me plenty of time to clean and social distance and all those things. But we're gonna have to be really explicit with the rules. I've even felt myself like almost a little bit like feeling awkward about asking people, I'm gonna take your temperature. Like, but I feel like I need to take their temperature. But I feel like inside my body, I'm like, I have all this cognitive dissonance because I'm like, I've never had to do this before. Are they going to be offended because I'm taking their temperature? And what my husband would say is, who cares? Because we're like trying to get safety. Like they were trying to figure out what's safe, right? And this is the guidance we're being given. So we're gonna say you have to wear a mask inside until you get on your mat, okay? Where you have to have your temperature taken. We're not doing any form of payment. You have to register for class before you come to class, right? We'll have a wait list, right? But that's it. Outdoor classes, you must maintain social distancing at all times, right? We encourage you to wear a mask. I can't force them in Austin. I can't force them to wear a mask. It's not like the mayor has come out and talked about it. The governor's talked about it. Like we can't force them to if they're outside. But if they're inside, I can say who I will and will not provide service to. And I'm saying I will only provide service to people who come in with a mask, go to their mat. They can practice. They don't have to have a mask on when they practice. But they have to have a mask on anytime they're in any common areas other than that. Now, another thing I'm going to do is I'm not turning on the air conditioning if we have inside classes, because the studies have shown that the air conditioning indoors contributes to spread. So I'm going to make sure all fans are off, all ACs are off for those class times. We'll do the class. I'm going to be very conscious of the poses that we're doing. I'm not going to be cueing things like open mouth exhales. That was another thing. The research that I did said that breathing in and out through your nose lessens your risk of having any viral particles enter your body to like literally 3%. It's when we're talking and we're like breathing in and out through our mouth that we're more susceptible because of the spittle that's coming with the breath, right? And the mouth and talking and all these things. So I'm going to instruct people to begin Ujjayi breath the second they get on their mat, that we're not breathing out through the mouth at all, period, in class right now. That's just not something to do. You can do that at home. And once they get done with class, they put their mask back on, they roll up their mat, and they're out. Like, I don't want them using the restrooms, like they're only for emergencies. Like, I don't want them hanging out and loitering in the lobby, right? So all of these things are sort of precautions I'm taking, but I'm gonna be really strict about it.
Hey, Michelle, it's Crystal.
Hey.
Interesting, we've already opened here, but here you have to get approval from my department. So I'm an infection control practitioner. So what we do is the social distancing. The big part is making sure that everyone's offset, right? Because it's the back down flow that you don't want. So there's no mats directly behind each other. And then they all have to sanitize before they come in. We don't make them wear masks, but there's the social distancing and it's lined up outside as well. But we also do a COVID safety check. So it's a 24 hours in advance that we make them do. And then that day, temperatures, I'm just going to say, and I know the States is a bit different than Canada, but they're not accurate. So every time we had temperatures here, it was like you stand outside, you can be too hot or too cold depending on your temperature, right? So it's not an accurate indicator. It's more the symptom check, the cleaning the hands, and then the disinfection and stuff like that.
So when you have the disinfection, so what we're adding contactless hand sanitizers next to both doors of the studio and next to the bathroom doors and the front door. So is that what you're talking about? You have them hand sanitized before they go into the studio and after?
Yeah, they can definitely hand sanitize before they go in. As far as going out, that's their business because they're leaving you. In terms of disinfection, just meaning that there is scheduled about 30 minutes between each class so that you can clean down whatever was touched and that type of stuff.
Okay. Now, here's a question I have for you. I was thinking about having my husband install like a plexiglass, like just shield for the front desk people, but then it occurred to me that people aren't going to want my front desk staff to not have a mask on, even if there's a plexiglass shield, right? So they're still going to want them to have a mask on no matter what.
So if you have a plexiglass, and depending on how it is, because here where I live, there's plexiglass everywhere, you do not need a mask. But if your plexi is very, very small, and turn on my camera for a minute, and it's like this small and barely covers, you'll need a mask. So you would want it so that it's high enough that people can't peek over and peek around. And there's no little openings, and then you're fine. So germs, if you think about it, viruses, they're a dead thing. They need a living host. They go through your eyes, nose, mouth, broken skin. That's how they get into your body. And so if you have plexi there, they can't break through the plexi.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gosh, I'm telling you, it's a whole new world. And Yeah, so that makes me feel a little bit better. I mean, here's my thing. I feel like, oh, did I share with, no, I didn't share with you guys. I shared with other people yesterday. So I have tips and tricks also for staying healthy during these uncertain times. And the first one that I'm going to give you is wash your toothbrush in the washing machine, the dishwasher, once a week. Sanitize that bad boy. Because what happens is you go out and you know, hop on again if you have anything to contribute, but you go out and like you're hanging out with your friend and your friend has a little cold, right? And so your friend gives you a little cold because, you know, that's what friends do. They share the love. And then you go home, but it's not enough to actually infect you yet. You brush your teeth, right? You set that toothbrush down and you're not doing anything. Well, bacteria or whatever can build up, and you know, people don't realize that the mouth is a direct line to the bloodstream. So you get bacteria, viruses, stuff like that building up on your toothbrush, and then you stick that thing in your mouth. If you've got bleeding gums, anything like that, it's right into your bloodstream. Well, even if you don't have bleeding gums, it's right into your bloodstream, right? That just makes it even worse. So Chris, my husband, has been washing all of our toothbrushes in the dishwasher for the last 4 or 5 years, and we have not gotten sick, knock on wood, because, you know, I mean, I'm also not a very huggy person, to be honest. Sorry, you know that. I'm just, you know, I'm not a real like snuggly person. They have to like beg me to snuggle. Like I'm available, but I just don't like a lot of extra snuggles or touching or whatever. So like I might hug a friend, but I'm not gonna like be like all up in my friend's face either, you know? So the first thing I was gonna say is yes, wash your toothbrushes. The next thing I'm gonna say is every time I go out of the house right now and I come back in the house, not only do I wash my hands, but I take Zicam. Zicam is the best thing since sliced bread. It is disgusting. It tastes horrible. And you can't eat or drink anything for 15 minutes after you take it, but it is like pure zinc. And it saved my tush in Ireland. Somebody came, so we had a bunch of people coming from Canada. And one of the moms who came from Canada, her little boy gave her a horrible virus, and she just happened to like peak when she got to Ireland. So everybody's dropping like flies, and I'm like, I cannot get sick. I lived on Zicam, and I did not get sick in a house of 12 women, and we didn't leave the entire time. And somehow I was one of the only 3 people that never got it. So Zicam is one of the things I recommend, and washing your toothbrushes. Sorry. Share that personal hygiene tip, I guess. Okay. All right, so I'm reading through the chat. If there's any other questions, can you talk about alignment in downward dog? It seems to hurt my shoulders, so maybe I'm not wrapping my arm. Yes. So probably, Julie, the chances is that what's happening is you're dumping into your ligaments in your shoulders. Do you feel like it hurts your shoulders? This is Julie. Do I still have Julie? I'm not sure if I do. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to move on, but yeah, oftentimes that is one of the reasons that we're dumping out in the shoulders. That means that we're moving into the ligaments and the attachments, the connective tissue, and that's why it's not great. That's why it hurts. So, any other questions about adjust and assist?
I have a question. So I guess in this new age of COVID, would you recommend not adjusting or assisting at all unless absolutely necessary? So would you say like feel good adjustments are a no-go?
Well, I think I would always ask, like I said, there's already classes here in Austin, like outdoor classes and stuff where they're adjusting and assisting all over the place. People are, not everybody is as concerned as I am, but I'm a business owner and my interest in this is a little different, right? I'm a business owner and a mom, so that's why I'm scared. If I wasn't a business owner and I wasn't a mom, I might feel totally different about it. So I think that as long as you ask people, I think that you can adjust whenever studios are open. But I would ask people. Another thing I do that I didn't talk to you guys about is, like, say you're in downward dog. You know how your shirt hikes up and like, or hikes down rather, and like your sort of low back is exposed now in your Lululemons. So you got to pull that shirt up to cover their skin, and then you put your hands on them. So I don't put my hands on anybody's direct skin unless it's like a shoulder or something like that. If it's their low back or if it's their hip or something like that, I make sure their shirt like is covering them. Like, I don't want to like just put my hands on them like that. I mean, I guess honestly, it's really going to be your personal preference, how you feel as a teacher. Do you feel comfortable providing these types of adjustments and assists during this time? And if you do, making sure that you do in fact communicate with your students so that they feel free to opt out if possible. So from what I understand, so Jeannie, I'm going to answer your question. I was under the impression that the virus could remain in the air for an amount of time. The research that I've done says that most of the spittle particles that contain the virus drop to the ground within seconds. So it's not like it just floats around. I have to be honest with you guys, when I was pregnant, when I was pregnant with my first son, I had postpartum psychosis. So I don't know if anybody's ever had postpartum psychosis. It's no fun. It's like postpartum depression on like steroids or something. And it caused my first pregnancy to be very, very painful and very, very uncomfortable because I was constantly worried about things like viruses and listeria. And I would like wash my hands to the point where, like they were like cracked, and I was very OCD about it. And really what it was is it came from my material, right? All of this stuff comes from our karma, our material, and I lost my parents and I was afraid of losing the baby. And so I literally wouldn't eat anything unless it was fried or processed. I'm not kidding. I gained like 120 pounds during that pregnancy. But one of the things that I did was, it was a lot of this like worrying about like viruses in the air and doing research about listeria and like doing all this stuff. And now that I'm healthy, happy, and I have my 3 children and I'm not in that place anymore in my life, I can see that it was really a place of fear, that my mind went from, you know, like, okay, this is what the threat, this is the potential threat, and here's the potential outcome. And my mind went from here to here in like 0 to 60, right? And so when we are in a better space, we're like, okay, like I even found myself last week when we were on the paddle boards, we floated underneath the bridge, and it came back a little bit because I was like, oh my God, is this dirty? Is COVID going to be floating down on me or anything like that? And then I had to tell myself, Michelle, you know better than that. You know that this is not how these things work. We've been walking around out in the world for millions of years, and you know, people don't just like look at you and give you the flu. That's not how this works, you know? So we are, I think, in a place of fear, and so some of us are reacting to that in like more of an extreme way, and some people are able to like talk themselves down and work through it. I think they're going to be varying degrees of
Can I just add to that, Michelle?
Yeah, please. Are you there? Winnie, you're muted for us.
Oh, I didn't have a question.
Oh, did somebody else have a question? Did somebody want to add to something?
Oh, that was me, Crystal. Sorry, my phone keeps freezing on me.
Oh, no worries.
So just to add, I think the confusion is there's a difference between viruses and what's airborne. So viruses are not airborne, like you said. They're very, very heavy droplets. So as soon as you cough, sneeze, speak, whatever, they come out, they go to a max of 2 meters, and they fall down within seconds because they're so heavy. The issue with COVID is that when you manipulate the airway, so whether it's through nebulizers or intubation or whatever, or you have water molecules, you break it up so that they're lighter, which means they can go further in a little bit, but they don't become airborne. They still drop down. It's just that we don't know how far, depending on, again, so in Canada we follow the WHO, but if you follow the states, sometimes they follow the WHO, sometimes it's the CDC. They go back and forth on what they're saying, but the virus itself is not airborne. So airborne is what stays in the air, like TB, things like that. They stay in the air for hours. Viruses don't. They're heavy, they fall down.
Cool. Cool. So my perspective as a business owner is I'm going to ask everybody to maintain social distance. I'm going to, because I'm a business owner and I own a studio, I'm not going to give my teachers the all clear to adjust until there is an acceptable treatment, right? Like that's just my comfort zone, but you guys, do what you feel comfortable with and what your students feel comfortable with. And I'm really going to maintain that social distance. And I'm not even, and honestly, I'd love to hear your point, your opinion on it, Crystal. I feel even like mask and stuff, like if I'm standing 6 feet away from you, I'm not really concerned about wearing a mask or not. That's me, okay? But if I have to be close to you, that's a different story. So coming in and out of the studio, moving through a tight doorway, multiple people putting their shoes away. That's why we want them to have masks in the entryway, because it's really hard to create social distance in an entry or in a retail space, right? But once they move into the studio, they've unrolled their mat, they're sitting on their mat, they can take off their mask, they can practice yoga in and out through the nose, get done, put on your mask, go get your shoes. What are your thoughts, Crystal?
Absolutely. So that's what we preach here is if you cannot maintain a 2 meter, 6 feet distance, then you need to wear a mask on your face. If you can, you do not need a mask. So as teachers, I wouldn't recommend, if you're just talking, it's one thing to have a mask on your face. I wouldn't recommend using a mask while you're doing heavy working out. I think that could, and then just to be aware that some people might have compromised lungs. So masking could be an issue for them as well. And then the other piece is just make sure that their mats, like if they have their masks, they put them on their mat while during practice. Because what I see when I walk around, and it drives me crazy, people have their masks on inside out, which is doing nothing, and they're constantly touching it. Thus, they're dirtying their hands, which makes things contaminated. So just those kind of things, because you're not used to having something on your face, it draws your hand to your face more.
Sure. So, and I think that one of the things that, I also drives me crazy a little bit when people have their mask and their nose isn't covered, although I do know that it's much less likely that your nose is going to create an issue. I think it's just the way my brain works. I want all orifices covered. If we had a little eye coverings too, I'd be all down with that. But that's just me, I guess. I think that when they're on their mat in their practice, I'm fine with it. Now, Crystal, I'm sorry I'm asking you a bunch of questions, but now I'm fascinated. So you've opened up a whole can of worms for me.
Oh.
So now what about teachers? If I have my teachers walking up and down in the front of the room and I sort of give them a 2 meter, walkway where I can say, hey, you guys need to stay in this area and you can teach without your mask. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I'm muted. Sorry. Repeat it one more time. Sorry, you froze on me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if the teacher is like, so let's say I've got 2 rows and they're staggered, and that gives me 10 people in the classroom. And then I've got 3 feet from the first mat to the end of the room, right? And that's where I want my teacher to walk up and down, right? Like, so she's in that 2 feet. She's giving at least 2 feet distance between her and the first mat, and she doesn't go into the class, right? Is it okay for her not to wear her mask?
It should be. So really, in order for the virus to infect you, you need at least 15 minutes face-to-face time with somebody. right? So don't just stand in one spot. Keep moving, kind of do that kind of thing. Usually, and sometimes when I'm walking through, like I'll turn my head. And again, remember, if everyone's facing forward, viruses don't jump and then go around, right? So you're going forward. So to remember that as well. And then here, they don't adjust. So they don't offer adjustments.
Okay. Now, what do you do if I've been telling my teachers that if one person in class wants them to wear a mask, they should wear a mask? What do you think?
I would say that you'd have to do that for the students, right? So that's kind of what we're doing here with our physios, massage, everything. They aren't mandated to wear a mask, but if someone asks them to, then they wear a mask.
Okay.
But then if your teacher's going to wear a mask, I wouldn't recommend that they don't practice with the students.
Sure.
Because just to maintain that, right? So if you're heavy breathing and you're rebreathing all your own stuff, right? So you're rebreathing all your endogenous flora and not getting the greatest amount of oxygen, depending on what kind of mask you wear, I would recommend that they just then teach and do verbal cues and not actually physically practice.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so somebody, thank you very much. Somebody says, Tanya says, tongue scrapers, yes, but I want to talk about the Listerine, okay, guys, because this is an Ayurvedic thing that most people don't know. When we use any mouthwash that has alcohol in it, it kills the natural flora in your mouth, and it makes you more susceptible to bacterial infections that can affect the valves of your heart. So I'm a yoga therapist at a cardiac rehabilitation unit, and I have seen more 50, 60-year-olds that had dental work and got an infection from dental work and had to have a valve replacement, which is open heart surgery. So the ancient yogis knew this, and that's why they talk so much about keeping your teeth and your mouth clean. So I would suggest, this is my personal suggestion, rather than Listerine, use something that is not going to destroy the natural, the good flora, the natural bacteria in your mouth, just like your gut, right? Let's see, any other adjusting and assist questions? This has been a really awesome little Q&A.
I just have one question about Warrior 3, because I'm trying to remember, you said something, I want to say last weekend, about the knee and the hip that's on the leg that is up. Are you still in, what is it when your pelvis is facing forward? Neutral?
Yes.
You're still in neutral, and is your knee that is up facing the floor down, or is it a little bit twisted?
Ideally, it's facing the ground.
Okay.
And your pelvis is in neutral, ideally. Now, it's funny, before we got on the call today, I was working with Charlie, my middle son, who has not even woken up yet. So he was supposed to be our model. Oh, he is? And you talk about weak glutes, man. I mean, I was like, lift your leg. And he was like, so here's his leg. Here's his other leg. I'm like, lift your leg. And he's like, ugh. I'm like, lift your leg up. He's, So, I mean, like a lot of times people can't get their leg up in line with their pelvis, their hip, but that's what we're going for. And ideally the kneecap should be facing down. And the toes, the foot of the standing leg should be active. That's another thing. People will lift that back leg and it's not active, and then it's like dead weight, right? You've got to activate the muscles in the leg, or it's not gonna, it's like the energy is all cut off.
And the back toes facing down.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, awesome.
Do you have any adjustments or assists you could suggest for my asana? Because the only adjustment I've ever had in my asana was really distal, and I mean, it felt great on me, but I could see why you wouldn't want to do it. You know, he just sort of reached down underneath and scooped up, and it was just like, ah. But you know, is there a way of encouraging that lift that doesn't involve heaving?
I'm not entirely sure. Can you show me in your body what it looks like in your body? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so what I would do is I could put my hands behind your shoulders and not lift. So I would put my hands behind your shoulders and then I would take my fingers, so like my middle fingers, and just gently push up into the center of your thoracic spine and let that cue your heart to move up, right? Does that make sense? Yes, no?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to stick around for a couple minutes. We're officially 15 minutes over today, guys. So I'm sorry about keeping you a little longer. But if you have any other questions, feel free to stick around. You can ask me now. I'm here. I'm excited. The calendar is all fleshed out. So you guys can look at the calendar and see what's coming up over the next couple weeks. We have children's yoga. We have prenatal yoga. We have psychology of yoga. We have subtle bodies. We have mudras and marmas coming up. We have advanced teaching skills coming up, and that's going to be really fun because we've got 3 different teachers teaching it. Anna Pilar is the director of our yoga therapy program. She's going to come in and teach you how to integrate the mythology and sort of that elements of like Shiva, Shakti into your classes. And then Christine Anderson is going to do one, and she's going to talk a little bit more about energetics. And then I'm going to do one, and mine is going to be the boring one on projection-free teaching. So, you know, it's all good. I know where my cup lies in all this, but I think it'll be really good. So I hope to see you guys back soon. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Michelle,
Yes.
is next weekend only for yoga therapy students? Like it has YT next to it.
Yes, so it's not only for yoga therapy students. We're letting you guys come into anything that you want. That says we are converting a lot of people and they're ending up registering to yoga therapy. So just be careful. That's my disclaimer. We're not trying to do it. We're trying to give you as much information as possible, but we can't be held responsible if you've decided that that's where you want to go.
Following that up, so how do I register for that? For yoga
therapy?
Yeah.
So you would want to email Anna Pilar. So her email address is Anna Pilar, ANAPILAR at myvinyasapractice.com, and tell her what program you're in and that you want to come to the yoga therapy program. Now, the yoga therapy program right now, we're doing via Zoom because of COVID, and IAYT is very flexible, way more flexible than Yoga Alliance. So it's a great time to register. Also, if you're coming into yoga therapy with a 500 hour, you're transferring into module 2 and 3. So it saves you like $4,000. So it's a really great time to do it if you want to do it. But probably there will be at least a handful of times you come to Austin. Now, that being said, we have a corporate apartment right above the studio. We have plenty of places for you guys to stay. You don't need to rent a car. I'll pick you up from the airport, all the things. We're doing this really because I did my training in San Diego and I really thought it was going to be commuter friendly, and it wasn't. I love my training, don't get me wrong, it was amazing, but when I wrote a training for yoga therapy, I wanted it to be commuter friendly, so that if you agreed to pay, X amount of money for your yoga therapy training, you wouldn't end up spending twice that to get it because of travel, right? So that's why we're doing this. Yeah, but that's who you would contact, Anna Pilar.
Okay, thank you. And also for, I was going to ask you, is there a module or a program for getting a business practice up and running, or tips for how to do your class and stuff like that?
Have you gotten to business of yoga yet?
No.
Okay, that's the class you're looking for. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's funny that you should ask or mention it, because we're actually starting a professional organization right now called Yoga Specialist. And that the whole company is, so my husband is an HR person and I'm in training. And so the whole company is designed to not be just a registry, but to provide you with business consulting if that's what you're looking for. So like you can become a member of the yoga specialist and just be a member, and that's fine. Or you can become a member and like have like a subscription to like, you know, advertising support monthly, or have subscription to business consulting monthly or whatever. And it's affordable and it's packaged and it's done by yogis who are in business. I mean, that's one of my fortes, I feel like, is the business. So I'm all about teaching you guys how to do that.
Yoga consulting for businesses. So you go to corporate and...
Well, no, it's sort of like you guys. So like, let's say that, so when I started this, I started it with nothing. Like guys, like literally I started it with $50. I had $50 extra a month to spend, or $50 extra a week to spend on advertising. And that's what I started it with. And then, you know, a month later, I now had $200 a week to spend on advertising. Then a month later, I had well, I'm an advertiser by trade. I have that background. The first account I was ever on was McDonald's on the Eastern Seaboard. So I know how to make a business. I know how to get I know how to get businesses out there. And then my husband has his MBA. And so he's taught me a lot, but then I also think I just have an intuitive way about it. So I figured out how to create a business, how to test products, how to analyze my competition. I learned then how to recreate month after month after month, year after year, the same revenue. So I wasn't it was consistent. I could project it. And then I learned how to scale. And so that's the big piece. It's like you can go from 6 figures a year to, you know, question mark. You can really do whatever you want. Like, you guys have to remember, I have 0 limiting beliefs, 0. And the reason I don't have any limiting beliefs is because I do my work, right? So if I feel like I am less than because, you know, I'm a yoga teacher and what do I know about business, then I bought into a limiting belief that's going to hold me back. But if I realize that I have everything that I need, that, you know, I have my own tribe of people who are going to connect with me and like what I do, and that I don't have to appeal to everyone. I have my people, right? And my people resonate with what I put out there, and that's all I need. And so then it just keeps going and going and going. And the bottom line is there's no shortage. And it's not like there's one pool and we can bleed it dry, right? Because every day people are like, oh, I want to deepen my practice. Every day people are like, you know, I've been thinking about yoga teacher training for the last 10 years. I think now's the time. Every day that happens, and it just keeps happening because that's the way it works. That's the way the universe works, right? So I wanted to do this for years. I actually bought the domain name years ago and I never did anything with it. And now we're at a place where I'm like, okay, let's invest in this. We've got, you know, all of these people in training that can try it out for free and like give us feedback and stuff like that. And we can create something that isn't there. There's a need for it. You know, people have been asking, you know, the different registries. So like Yoga Alliance or IYT, I mean, they've been asking them for years, help us to make money. Help teach us what to do to create a viable business. You know, I don't just want a hobby. I want a business. Well, I can do that for you. I know how to do that. And so, you know, I also meet with you guys anytime. It's so funny. Shiva got all mad at me last week. She was like, why do you keep telling them you'll meet with them? And I'm like, because that's part of my accessibility is I will meet with you if you want to go over your website or how to get people to book your retreats, or you want me to go over your business plan. Like, I will do it because I know it. Yeah.
Excellent. Wow. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah. If every single one of you did exactly, I mean, obviously I want you to create your own programs and I want you to create your own company, and I support you in all of that. But if every single one of you guys used the same model that I'm using and created your own unique products for that model, you could do whatever you want. You just basically have to throw it out to the universe and say, I think I would like to retire on an island. And guess what? You will retire on an island. You just have to keep wish it, want it, do it. Serious. It really doesn't matter. And you don't have to have you know, you don't have to have a lot of money or capital behind it. You can start real small and slowly you just keep scaling. Yeah. And now that the internet and yoga have become like best friends, like there's no shortage, guys. There are 1 billion people in the world. There are more than 1 billion people in the world. Do you know right now how many people we have registered in training? And it's a huge number. I mean, it's in the thousands, but do you know it's only 0.000006% of America's population? I haven't even hit 1%. Do you see what I'm saying, guys? It's infinite. And, you know, there's a couple different things you have to think about. You have to position yourself properly in the market. You know, I'm always saying, people will say to me, they're like, why aren't your programs more expensive? Da, 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 da. And I'm like, you know, why? It's not, to me, it was never about that. So I try to keep my programming and the things that I do like in alignment with my values. And that makes it positioned well and accessible. Yeah.
Michelle, I just had a quick question.
Sure.
But thank you for all of that. That was amazing. On my welcome packet, this is my first weekend of Zoom. I just joined you guys just earlier this week. But on my link that says to see upcoming Zoom, like the list of what's coming, that link is dead. And
Okay.
I think a couple of people yesterday mentioned it also, but the one to see past was available. But it was the one to see the list of the Zoom classes topics, I guess, that were coming up. So where should I go for that?
I got you. Okay. Well, I can put it into the chat right now if you want me to.
Okay.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah. And then is the Facebook group, is that the best place for me to go for just general information or?
Facebook. Well, let me tell you, social media is not my fave, but a lot of people like it and use it. So we have been using it.
Okay.
That said, we are giving everybody an actual, a dedicated mentor. So if you don't have a mentor yet.
Yeah, I don't. Okay.
But you're going to email mentor@myvinyasapractice.com.
Okay.
And they will assign you a mentor. And the reason that we decided to do this is because some people were not, here I'm putting the link in the chat right now.
Perfect, thank
some
you.
people were not getting emails because when they registered for training, they opted out of emails, okay?
Gotcha.
And I couldn't do anything about it. If you're not getting emails, I promise I would send them to you if I could, but Teachable won't let me, because I send it through Teachable.
Okay.
So what we decided was, okay, we really need to have everybody has a dedicated mentor if they want a dedicated mentor. That way, when stuff happens or when we update things or whatever, we can send it directly to you through your mentor. So that's one of the benefits of having a mentor. But you don't have to have one if you don't want to. But yeah, it's one of the benefits.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, Michelle, I've been in for a few weeks and I'm listening every weekend and going through the coursework and I love it. I'm really happy with everything that I've done. And this is my second training. So I have a little bit of comparison point. It's been fantastic. So thank you so much. But I was wondering do you have any suggestions? Because I haven't emailed a mentor yet. I have a list of questions I want to ask. I'd thought about doing pose reviews. Christine suggested she could get on one-on-ones with us. You suggested that as well. But I just don't know if you have some ideas how we should try to think about utilizing the mentoring.
So what people typically do is they either, oh, did that go privately? Sorry, guys. Let me give this to everybody. Hold on one second. Sorry. There we go. So what I would recommend is use your mentor to ask questions. Short questions via email are great. Email your mentor directly for that, okay? Say you have a question. In section 2 of the 200 Hour, it says to read the Yoga Sutras, chapter 1, Samadhi Pada. We get this question a lot. Is that really what you want me to do? That's an excellent email question for your mentor. She can say, yes, that's exactly what we want you to do. I don't know why we worded it that way, but yes. So yes, that's how we want you to do it. But if you've got a more specific question, like question about alignment, or question about sequencing, or a question about theming, or maybe you just want to talk to somebody about, what it feels like to go through training. Yeah, that's when you get on a one-on-one with your mentor. So she's either going to help you with, your postural alignment. She's going to help you with your asana alignment. She might just help you, process through, some of the sutras. She might help you if you've got a block against like sequencing. These are what your mentor is there for. But please do allow 2 full business days for your mentor to get back to you. And realize that, and I'm saying this not only for people on the call, but for people who will watch the call later, please realize and remember that if you ask once and you haven't, heard from your mentor in like 2 days, it's highly likely that they just haven't gotten to you. Sending another email is actually like adding more to like the pile, right? So think about, there's how many thousands of you? There's a lot, actually. And we want to service each and every one of you. And I will hire unlimited amounts of mentors to support you guys. So that doesn't even matter to me. In fact, that's part of why we wanted to do this. This creates jobs. It's a different type of job for a yoga teacher, right? Another plug for mentors. If you want a mentor, we want you to mentor 20 to 40 hours a week. So if you're interested in that and you're done with the course, that's what we're looking for. You have to have finished at least the 200 hour. Is there a way to opt back into emails? I don't think so. You would have to go onto your Teachable dashboard and look at your settings. It may let you there. Okay. Did I answer your questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Well, yes, ma'am. I'm ready for you.
So I actually have a question about that. I got assigned my mentor, and I know I had asked you about it again, and on the last, I think it was your office hours, but I still have not heard from mine at all. So like, I don't have an email from her or anything.
Who is it?
Deb.
Deb, so her email's on the welcome packet, and it's deb@myvinyasa.practice.
Okay, I didn't know for sure if that was her, and I didn't want to like email the wrong person. Yep. But yeah, I still haven't heard anything from her, and it's been over a week. So I was like,
Yeah, so reach back out to her and know that sometimes emails bounce back to us.
Okay.
And so if they bounce back until this, like we've had a couple situations where somebody has like literally every time we try to send them an email, it bounces back to us. And so she actually reached out to me on Facebook, and I was like, oh my gosh, we've been trying to email you for weeks. And so she actually had to email me through my personal Gmail account in order to like get it. So that could be an issue, but email Deb, and then in your Gmail, if you're using Gmail, you can say that this is you can accept, or does anybody know what it is? You can basically say that this is a safe email to receive. The My Vinyasa Practice.com, I think, messes with some of the POP servers, and they're like, this is spam.
Yeah, I've added the URL piece to it, so mine doesn't kick it back. So, okay, thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, just reach out to her directly.
Okay.
Cool. And then also, when in doubt, if it's been more than 2 days and you haven't gotten anything back, you feel free to just reach out to me directly too. Yeah. So yes, so somebody asked about the psychology of yoga. The psychology of yoga is 5 days. And it is going to be like the same schedule. So like 9 to 12, and then like 1 to 3. And so if you're in yoga therapy training, you have to be there all 5 days. If you're not in yoga therapy training, you certainly could take it piecemeal and watch the video. That's fine. But to get credit for yoga therapy, you have to be there. All right.
Does that count? So say like we do a piecemeal, would that count towards the 48 hours of Zoom that we have to?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yes, Pooja.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for the amazing class. It was so beneficial and useful, like a lot of knowledge. I have a question. I'm about to write my mini sequence for the section 7. Any like ideas how should I do, because I'm a little confused on it. Like I don't know how should I proceed.
So, so mini sequences can be like 30 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. And don't I tell you to do it for special populations? Is that this one?
It is on the subtle bodies.
Subtle bodies. Okay, chakra bodies. So yes, you're gonna do, you can either pick one, right? Or you can pick multiple.
Okay.
If you pick multiple, I would recommend either sticking with, because it's a mini sequence, I would recommend sticking with like the earth chakras. So like, what are the earth chakras? Solar plexus, a sacral, and root. Or the ethereal chakras, heart, throat, third eye, crown. So pick one or the other if you're going to do multiples, because it's so short.
Yeah. So I should sequence the poses around these chakras, right?
Yeah, and you can do one chakra. You could do just root chakra or just the heart chakra. That's fine too.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Anything else I should keep in mind for this sequence?
No, but this is a good time for me to say, guys, I'm really not that strict when it comes to this stuff. So sometimes people are like, well, am I doing it right? I don't, you write out your sequence.
Okay.
Give me like a paragraph or two about like what your theme is and what special cues you're going to use to help convey your theme. And then if you teach the class, then you might, write down the experience. What was it like to teach it, But you don't have to write every single cue. I have gotten like 5-page mini sequences before with like every single cue, and that's fine. I'll take it all day long, but that's a lot of work for you guys. I know this isn't the only thing you're doing with your life. So like, be kind to yourself. You don't have to stress about it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys, feel free to hop off whenever you're ready. I'm just going to stick around in case there are any additional questions. Have a great rest of your day. I really appreciate each one of you. Yeah, so grateful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Michelle, can I ask you a question, please?
Yes, of course.
Hi, this is Catherine from Maui. Hi.
Hi, Catherine.
Someone had mentioned before, and for some reason, I think they popped off and weren't able to get their question up, but they were talking about pain in their shoulder when they're in downward dog. And I messaged also that, I have a similar sensation I get in my left shoulder when I'm just resting in child's pose. And I do somewhat get it when I'm in downward dog as well. Not when I'm in upward dog. And if I'm not touching the floor, I don't have any problem with extension. I come from I have a very strong upper body. I don't know if it's like my muscles are just cutting something off when there's pressure. I think I'm doing it right. I don't have any known issues in my shoulder. I competitively paddle outrigger canoes, and I'm constantly stretching and working my shoulders out all day, but I'm like, what is going on? I know I don't have an issue, but maybe there's
So bring that hand next to your thigh and then just raise it up to about 45 degrees.
Just straight up?
To the side.
Oh, sorry.
No, down about 45. So halfway in between there and your hip. Yep, right there. Any pain?
Zero.
Okay.
Until I put my hands on the floor, there's pressure, like if I'm pushing off my hands, it seems to be.
So here, nothing either? No sensation? Here, no sensation?
Zero.
And then here, no sensation?
No.
Okay, well, it doesn't seem like there's any impingement to the shoulder itself. You might have you might just have some overuse maybe from the movement of rowing and stuff like that might have just caused it might almost be like it's overbuilt those muscles. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. But I
feel like that's what it might be actually, because I'm a massage therapist of almost 20 years too. So I'm very aware of when I'm feeling things, but it seems to be only when I'm doing really what I feel like the working poses, but basic poses, and it's frustrating that I'm feeling something that I feel like I shouldn't be.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I do. I know exactly what you mean. I think that, yeah, I think that to me, it sounds like it might be just like, you know, that you've built up. Is that your dominant hand?
No, actually, it's not, which is, it kind of blows my mind why it's in one shoulder and not the other, based on how I use my body. And in paddling, it's totally ambidextrous, like it's equal on both sides. And I try to emulate that when I massage, so I'm not using one side more than the other. I try to stay as balanced as possible, but.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, I had a conversation with not Christine Anderson, but Christine, the occupational therapist that I've been talking to. I think she's an occupational therapist or a physical therapist. If she's on the call, are you on the call? No. And she mentioned that, you know, stuff like what you're talking about can either be from, you know, building up the muscle too much and imbalances that way, or maybe your dominant is stronger. And so when you get in downward dog, it like dumps into the opposite one a little bit. That's a possibility. So I would play with, well, what does it feel like to put more pressure in your dominant hand?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I would play with stuff like that. What does it feel like to put more pressure in your dominant hand? What does it feel like? Does that relieve any pressure in the opposite shoulder? Stuff like that.
Okay. Would you mind if I show you really quick, you can just tell me if it looks right, just to make sure it's not something I'm doing incorrectly.
Yeah.
Can you see? There we go.
Yeah.
So, and I'm rolling my biceps out, so I feel like there's space.
Mm-hmm. And it hurts now?
No.
So here, can you do me a favor, and can you tilt the screen up a little bit so that I can see? Yeah. Oopsie, I lost you. So if you'll tilt the screen up just a little bit so I can see you in down dog, and then pop into down dog.
Is that, can you see me? What is going on with my camera? I don't know. I think my camera, I have the crappiest computer known to man. I think I just killed my camera by hit it wrong. Oh well.
No worries, no worries. If it comes back on, or if you want to do like a check-in or something like that, let me know. And I can.
It looks right though, right? My child's pose looked correct?
Oh yeah, yeah, your child's pose looks fine. But what comes up for me is it looks like that in your child's pose that it's possible that you have a little hypermobility in your shoulders. And so if you pop up into down dog and you're hypermobile in your shoulders, that's going to be where the pain is coming from.
Well, that makes sense. Okay. Okay. I'll be more aware of that.
Then at that point, what you want to do is you want to come out of it a little bit.
I'm sorry, I want to what?
Come out of it a little bit. Like don't sink too much into those ligaments and attachments. Press into the mat, and then really focus on creating integrity in your shoulder girdle, and rather than flexibility.
Okay, and I guess I would just apply that concept to anything where I'm using that strength. That makes sense. Thank you. I know that's a really basic thing to ask about, but it's been driving me crazy.
No, totally fine. Awesome.
Great, thank you. And on a side note, I think I had messaged you about transferring to the 500-hour course.
Okay.
You said to go ahead and get in touch with Tara. I'm assuming with the busy, it's going to take a couple of days because I haven't heard from her yet.
I probably told her to wait till Monday because she has not had a weekend off in like 8 weeks. So yeah, so just give her till Monday.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And I so appreciate how accessible you make yourself to everybody. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All righty, guys. Well, feel free. I'm gonna sign off here. If there aren't any other questions, if you have any other questions, just let me know before I sign off. Awesome. Well, great work today, guys. I appreciate you. You know, like I said, keep doing what you're doing. Just one last note, if you registered before June 1st and you have seen the welcome packet and it has scared you, please don't worry about it. It went into effect on June 1st. So if you did not register after June 1st, you don't need to worry about it. Okay? All right. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys. Thanks.